Well, energy kick, but not like, I don't feel like garbage after. Celsius, feel like garbage after. Monster, feel like garbage after. Red Bull, feel like garbage after, and I still drink them. But like, I feel like absolute shit. And I'm like, okay, so I know I really enjoy them. It's like, what can I find, or can I find something? So Nicole got these recently, and I'm like, oh my God. Well, energy kick.
Yeah.
But not like, I don't feel like garbage after.
Yeah.
Like Celsius, feel like garbage after. Monster, feel like garbage after. Red Bull, feel like garbage after, and I still drink them regardless.
Yeah.
But I feel like absolute shit.
That's.
And I'm like, okay, so I know I really enjoy them. It's like, what can I find, or can I find something? So Nicole got these recently, and I'm like, oh my God.
Now, do you separate that type of caffeine from coffee at all, or is coffee just like a staple for your, or like you just mentioned coffee earlier?
So I start off in the morning with a cup of coffee.
Okay.
And
So
I think it's just like a
non-negotiable.
It's like a calming thing for me in the sense of, okay, like I'm getting this cup of coffee in my system. Like it's a routine thing.
Right.
Wake up, do your thing, morning routine, just get a cup of coffee in me. And I don't have like a 4-step morning routine.
Right.
I'm like, a cup of coffee, get up, I drink my cup of coffee, we keep going, right? I'm also not the most like detail-oriented individual, never really have been. I'm like, okay, I just want to get things done, let's keep going, let's get to things as quickly as possible. So you get the cup of coffee and you're like, okay, consistency.
Right.
And then I move on to the next thing. And then like 4 hours later, if I'm feeling it, go for another like energy drink of some kind. But I'm trying to stay away from a cup of coffee and like 2 energy drinks.
Yeah.
Because then you're like, dude, it can be overwhelming to say the least.
I just joined the caffeine train probably like 6 months ago or so, and I'm a very trial and error guy. I don't know, just even when I was at Citadel at the time, really started my senior high school to get so in tune with just my body and trying to learn just between physiology, but also how food would interact. And caffeine's been an interesting ride for me so far because if I had a little bit, I would stay awake for. If you're like, it has a half-life of a few hours, you gotta. Dude, there was points where I'd have just a sip of coffee anytime. I'm just wired. Maybe there's a little part of it's mental as well.
Yeah.
But I have actually weirdly after coffee, okay, but I get a little edgy. Edgy, like it's a different energy. And don't get me wrong, there's certain times, if I have food, what time of the day I'm drinking it. But there's like I've had some of those Alani's recently.
What's an Alani?
Alani is it's an energy drink.
Okay.
It's one of those, you always see these like energy drinks or certain things go through their timeline of like, man, that's like, it's kind of like how what are some of those like just like drinks that you've seen the alcohol ones, sparkling.
Oh yeah.
Like they go through those phases and they do a great job of marketing for one. I think Alani's in that phase right now. But I've recently been like, the energy I get from it has been great, and I don't have a bad energy from it. I'll tell you what though, on Friday I went to Sullivan Hagen had a birthday party pickleball. And so I play a little pickleball. I mean, that's when you ask like, what do you do outside? A ton of that.
Heck yeah.
And I just remember Friday I had this caffeine. It's called Rain something. It's like 7 p.m. at night. It's a Friday night. They had the course till 11. I was like, okay. I haven't had much to eat all day because we had our team meeting at the Citadel. We were there. It was. I have not felt like that. I don't know what was in it. But I literally was buzzing so hard. I felt a mixture of being high, a little bit of buzz drinking, or like you feel kind of good, but at the same time, just like, and I was like, I'm going to stick to my lines. I'm going to stick to certain things that I think it was a panic jinxing and all that type of stuff. Because I was like, I'm good.
Dude, rains are intense though.
I never heard of them until I tried it, and I was like, I felt cracked out.
Yeah, I mean, I'll take one going into the gym, which I stopped taking pre-workout 2.5 years ago, 3 years ago. Just because like I have heart palpitations and like other things that came from it, and I was like, probably shouldn't be drinking energy drinks either. I was like, but instead I'll drink an energy drink. So anyways, it's kind of confusing. But you figure out your body. What does your body like, and what can I enjoy, and what makes me feel good. And for me, it's like I have to chug a lot of water.
Yes.
But then if I chug a lot of water and I have like a rain before a workout, I mean, we're pushing PRs like every single workout, right? And you're like, why am I doing it? And then you pull your back and you're like, all right, now I realize that I'm getting older and I probably shouldn't have done that, right? It hits you so hard. That's the biggest realization I've had. Once again, like I love going into a workout, super high energy.
Yeah.
But I'm like, all right, let's not be stupid today though. I was like, because I can ego lift very easily. And then you're the guy dropping the bar with, 315 on it after a couple reps, and you're like, wait, I don't have that much energy actually.
And I think, what's awesome about me, if you think about like what does caffeine do and like the actual body and like the chemistry of what it actually does, it puts you in that, especially in that fight or flight state. Yeah. And I've started to realize you just got to know, when do I want to be in that fight or flight state?
Right.
I like sometimes I'll do it a little bit too much intentionally, but I like pressure situations.
Yeah.
I like high stress situations. And with, I like having caffeine now before a workout, before I'm about to do something. And the times that I feel like I get the most edgy is if I am just, let's say for some reason I'm sitting down, fiance and I are just watching TV or whatever that is, I'm just sitting there, I can't have caffeine. I got to be doing something.
Yeah.
So I think what I do like combining the caffeine is because it puts you in that fight or flight state, and you can fight, lifting those weights, doing those PRs. So it's like, okay, this is what it's meant for. So yeah, I'm curious. I might give those reins a second chance, and I have to knowing that I'm about to freaking crush it.
Yeah, give it a second chance before a workout.
That's
high intensity is something. So the other interesting one too for me is like if I drink caffeine before a high intensity cardio workout, I will most likely puke.
Really?
If I drink too much caffeine prior to the high intensity or like HIIT workouts, if I'm going in just like heavy lift, that's different. But if I'm going in to like run a lot and do high intensity cardio, then I'm most likely going to throw up during the workout. So it's like the anxiety that's produced from the amount of caffeine that I put into my system. And this is what I've learned. It's taken me till this past year to realize that, right?
That's cool. You're at least learning.
Keeping your head against the wall. Time to figure it out eventually. But I was like, man, why do I feel so pukey during these workouts? And I was like, what did I drink today? What did I put in my body today? And you start to realize, I had 2 cups of coffee 4 hours ago. Right. I probably shouldn't have done that prior to this workout. So, but then you start to think about it, and you're like, wow, like now I know what works for me and what doesn't work for me. So, just enough coffee, not too much coffee, right? Just the right kind of energy drink, not too many energy drinks, not too much. So it's just, all of it's a balance, right? And I love how people always say like, oh, well, that energy drink's gonna be terrible for you. It's gonna be terrible for your heart, or that's gonna. I'm like, listen, everything's about. You have to figure out what's good for your body.
For sure.
Not that it's great for us to begin with,
right?
But you gotta figure out what works for you, and then go from there.
Just leverage. You gotta leverage things, and just like you said, man, it's I think just being intuitive. Just being intuitive about your body. Like I feel like at a young age I was doing it because I was crushing pre-workout since age 15 because went to high school, got into working out for baseball and football, was crushing all these, and I look at it now. I remember I said I just kind of got back on the caffeine train 6 months ago. I was crushing it. But my stomach lining, I think just as a kid, when you're younger, you can stomach a little more things and you can bounce back a lot quicker.
Yeah.
Drinking, or pre-workout, all those things. But I think I was just crushing my stomach lining. And then by the time I got to college, my stomach lining was just, I had such a sensitive stomach. I had to just I had to cut so many things out. And I could feel like my body fighting through. I mean, it was showing up through energy, skin conditions. It was just digestive stuff, and that's what kind of put me on that train, which is good now because a lot of things that I've been kind of weird about. Like I gave up dairy 12 years ago, and at the time, and it's still, if I'm with some friends are like, "Oh, that's annoying," because then I'll like put in my order at a restaurant or something. That's just what works for me. And there's definitely times where you try to say, "Okay, am I being mental about it and overthinking it, or is it just like you just know?" And anytime I've kind of steered away from it, that's when I go back and like I can't do anything physically strenuous 2 hours within the time I eat now.
Yeah.
In high school, I could pound a full bowl of oats mixed with like chicken or something. It sounds crazy, but before 30 minutes for a workout, perfectly fine. So just knowing.
Yeah. Yeah. Speaking of dairy, like I love cheese.
Yeah.
And I will late night snack on like cheesy bread. And I'll like make my own cheesy bread. But I've realized like I wake up the next morning, I'm like, all right, well, I feel like garbage now. Or like you break out. You're like, okay, well, like I probably can't process that dairy. Even if it's whatever it is in the cheese, right? We don't I don't even know what's in our cheese now.
Yeah.
The cheese that comes in the bag, the mixed cheeses, like there's got to be plenty of chemicals in there. But on top of that, in the dairy, it just doesn't make me feel great. So I'm like, that's probably something I should cut out. Same thing with alcohol. Like you have a few drinks, it's like one or two drinks, you're okay. 3, 4 drinks in any sitting or any setting, and it's like, okay, I'm feeling like garbage. Obviously from the hangover, first and foremost. Secondly, like my body's just not going to react to it properly. And so for 2 or 3 days, I'm not just going to be hungover, but I'm going to be foggy. I'm going to break out. I'm not going to feel it. It's just there's so many other symptoms that come along with it. So I think people always talk about like, oh, like why are you not doing this? Like because my body doesn't want it.
Yeah.
Like, I can't function properly and do what I want to do if I drink or consume those things.
It's crazy how it makes you like the outlier by having to justify it and tell people like I decided because my body's going to react this way. And I think it was weird because at a young age too, a male, I was in high school or college, and my indicators for me was skin conditions. I was breaking out.
Yep.
And when you're in high school, you're going through, you're like, I don't know what it is, playing football, you're sweating. But I think it's that point I'm like, okay, this is like year 3 where like you're breaking out more and more. And you're like, something for me, it was just more like you should be able to identify what's going on.
Right.
Like something, it's like, it's not just by chance.
Right.
And I think just being conscious about that at a younger age, or it wasn't like the cool thing to do, or I guess the traditional thing is like, that's what was a big indicator for me that led me down this pathway of still definitely a lot more balance now. Still have my non-negotiables, but I think I've been kind of those strict lines have kind of opened up a little bit. So
100%. Just like consuming anything, right? You get to figure out what you can consume and feel okay with.
Mm-hmm.
Also media too. Like, don't consume certain media.
Right.
In general, yeah. Right? Like, stay away from certain things. Stay away from social media as much as you possibly can, unless it's going to be productive for you.
Mm-hmm.
But there's just that consumerism aspect in general. It's like, what are you consuming on a daily basis that makes you feel good and what makes you feel terrible?
For sure.
And then figure out what's going to help you to get to that next level. Whatever your goals are, just make sure you're doing the right thing for yourself. You're balancing it properly. I didn't even introduce you yet, but This is Chris Proveaux, founder of Professional Movers of Charleston. And you started PMC right after the Citadel, or did you graduate and then do something else before then coming back to start PMC?
Great question. Well, it started in really April 2018. Graduated in 2017 in May. I have in that short timeline between graduation too, that was definitely a long story, or definitely can go into details with it, or
feel free.
Really want to get into. So graduate
as much as you.
Yeah, no, I would love to. And honestly, I think this is because I got a chance to meet you in college. We at Citadel together, and so going to before the Citadel. So I actually went to the Clemson Bridge program for a semester. Always kind of a little bit daring, a little bit wild in terms of just got in trouble there, and a bunch of buddies from Charleston, we all went up to there. They're like, hey, we need some fake IDs. I had an older sibling, things at the time. I was like, you know what? Let's go and get this. I was the one that got in trouble, caught with them, and so went over to the Citadel, and then went to the Citadel for a little bit. When I was at the Citadel, my father actually got diagnosed early onset dementia for at like 52, super early. Wow. And this is like right in the middle also, where I'm into learning about health, learning about the body, and I was like, hold up, what is this? This isn't something that was on my agenda that I was studying for a while. So it was at Citadel, and that's when I met you and all that, because I kind of I was like in my own zone at Citadel. I wasn't fully washed, drinking Kool-Aid, but also wasn't completely a shitbag, but kind of just did my own thing.
Yep.
Because I think just between what was going on outside of school and also at home was just mentally, and then also had a lot of like side projects I was doing financially, was trying to keep that going. So went to Citadel. Once I it was probably around April. I just remember sitting in my mom's dining room, and I always had my little, I'm talking about Apple, really, I had a little my iMac. I just remember going, you know what, June 1st, I'm flying somewhere. I'm moving somewhere. So I bought a one-way ticket to California. At the time, it was flying to LAX. I knew a high school buddy I played football with. He moved to Long Beach. I didn't know anything about Long Beach. I didn't know anything. I knew that California, there's some pretty cool, always lived kind of like that nutritional hippie lifestyle. Yeah. And I wanted to learn more. So I'm moving to Cali, sink or swim, I'm going to figure it out. Charleston's always going to be here. So I bought a one-way ticket there. Graduated. Once you graduate around like May 6th or so. So I had about 3 weeks until once I graduated, I moved out to California. So I flew into LAX. There was a classmate of ours. I don't even remember, Cody Spearman.
Yeah.
We were starting to get along near the end of my senior year, and he's like, man, I have some family that live out in California. If you want to go see them or stay with them until you figure out your plan. Yeah. So I was like, you know what? I don't have a plan, and I'm going to tell you guys. Even because the professors, I had a great relationship with a lot of our professors, but they definitely did not like my path. They're like, this is very untraditional. You come to Citadel, but you're neglecting going straight into a career and trying to figure it out. So I ended up, I said, I'm just going to pack my bags. I'm going to go there and just try it out. So I actually stayed a few nights with some his family in Hollywood for about a week. And then it was time for me to go see my buddy in Long Beach. I remember that day, and it's crazy how everything works out, but it was very fortunate at the same time. I remember going there. He came off his lunch break. He was working like Trader Joe's in Long Beach, and I finally Ubered to his place. And he's like, hey, I got to go back to work. You get settled in here. And this is where you'll stay. And I just remember sitting there for about an hour, and I'm in this empty house in Long Beach, California, and I could just feel that this was not going to be conducive to I gave myself a 1 year timeline.
Yep.
I was going to go somewhere for a year. If I didn't make it, or whatever that definition of making it was, I had to come back home. And I just remember like, hey, I'm already within a month calling my mom, do you know somebody around here? And because this is, I got to pivot a little bit.
Yeah.
So I pivoted, and she's like, actually I do. It's a very close family friend. They live in Pasadena, California, and if you want to go stay with them, I can reach out to them. And my mom, she is this 5 foot, Hispanic lady with 6 foot energy. She will get shit done. And no matter what we do and don't do, like, she is our biggest fans, and I have to give her so much credit because even when I was younger, I'd always kind of test the waters a little bit. She was almost like that. My kids can't do no wrong.
Yeah.
She'll always discipline us and make sure, but she was that person that gave us so much confidence. And sometimes I think I'm like, almost have like blind confidence.
Yeah.
She's like, you got it. You whatever you want to do, you can do it. So I'm not. She calls them and she's like, hey, I just talked to them. This is within an hour. You can head there right now. They have a place for you. I get to this apartment. They have 2 kids that are twins. They're in 8th grade. They have a dog, I believe. I think it was 1 dog, yes. And then and they're all, so their house is getting renovated in Pasadena. We're stuck in this small apartment, and I'm like, guys, I don't know what my plan is. I appreciate y'all having me. I'm sleeping on their couch for months. And so it was just funny because after about a month goes by, I was like, I gotta get a job. Like, Chris, time is ticking. Now it's about September. I'm kind of just trying to figure out, once again, I'm still trying to learn more about health and fitness. And
right.
They have a lot of meetups there. Meetup is an app that they used to use a lot in California, and now it's kind of spread. But so I was going to these health conventions and learning, but I remember stopping by a Tesla dealership. And they don't have dealerships, they have showrooms, technically. And I just remember walking in there, I was like, this is badass. And I did some of my papers about Elon Musk and Jeff Bezos in 2017, 2016. I have a lot of admiration for these people. Like, let me see what's going on with Tesla. Like, I want to learn. And I walk in there, and there's this guy named Jared Villawenza, Jared something, but he just approaches me. I'm like, man, this is badass. These cars are awesome. These Tesla cars. I did some reports about them. I know a little bit about them, and he was about the same age as myself, and I love his energy and how passionate he was about Teslas and how he so we hit it off, and I'm in there for like 2 hours learning about these things, exchange phone numbers. I told him I just moved here. About a week goes by. I was like, hey, y'all hiring at all? So as that unfolds, I trying to be strategic how I network and also get in. He got me an interview, so I ended up working at Tesla. Worked at Tesla for around beginning of September, end of September, possibly for 2017 for a few months.
Were you simultaneously still living with this family?
I was living with this family. So I'm living, and this is where it's a big humble piece of pie because you just graduated college, you got a degree, you go to the Citadel, you do all these things, and you got these 14-year-old kids. They'll tell you, you're kind of homeless, man. And I'm like, shit, I guess I am homeless, y'all. They're like, are you going to get a job or like a real job? And in my mind, I'm like, man, I'm on this path to crush it and create, but I'm trying to find myself at the same time. When you have some 14-year-old kids telling you, hey, like, you need to get a job and you're homeless living on my couch, you're almost like having to respect, like having to look up to them and like, guys, like, I appreciate y'all having me here. But, so I was living with them. It was cool. I learned a lot about just business and just life in general, and also just first time being in a big company.
Yeah.
And we can hit on a lot of these things later, but progressed into that, moved. So I had a cousin who actually lived up in Palo Alto, which is Northern California. And I was reading there's a book called The Good Gut Project, which talks about the microbiome. This is 2017, a lot more like gut bacteria and all that was just kind of popular.
Right. So it's really taken off now.
It has, and I was very interested about them, and never ended up meeting them, but they were actually their research was being funded by Stanford University. My cousin was teaching a foreign language up in Stanford, and I was like, man, I've already made it this far. Let me keep going continue my journey. I know I got about 6 or 7 months left. So I actually packed my bags. I gave Tesla, my manager's name was Art Taylor, gave him a little heads up. I was like, hey, this has been awesome. I appreciate y'all taking a chance on me. I'm going to probably continue my journey because I still don't know what the heck I want. I love it. I got to see this, but I want to continue just to see what's out there because my timeline's ticking down. Yeah. And I was able to kind of let him know, my father's health is definitely kind of speeding things up for me a little bit over here. So I called my cousin Tommy. I was like, hey, can I come up there? He's like, no problem, got an apartment, you got another couch you can live on for a little while. So I actually made that long drive up the coast and just kind of, so they do trimesters at Stanford. So by the time I got there, they were about to start one of their semester, their trimesters. And he even asked me, like, what's your plan? I was like, I don't have a plan, but I know Stanford and Silicon Valley has always been talking about, like, Silicon Valley. So that's right where Sunnyvale is, Palo Alto, Menlo Park. So I went to go stay with him for a little bit. I actually went to go walk around campus a lot. I sat in a few classes. One was an econ class. These classes are a lot bigger than Citadel. 300 people. You show up there, you don't show up there. You're just a number there.
Right.
But the one that I really loved was a 5 p.m. Master's program class. It was called Health and Nutrition in Startups, or like entrepreneurships. So I'd come in there, always like 5:07, 5:05 right after they'd call attendance, because this was a smaller classroom. This is about 30 people.
So let's backtrack just for a second.
Please.
You were not paying for any of these classes.
No, I was not paying for any of these classes, and I've always, like, Steve Jobs apparently did something like this in college too. So I was a little bit of like, all right, time to take. I've always been a big risk taker, calculated risk, but I was like, what's the worst that can happen? So I was sitting in these classes for a while, and the cool part about that in Silicon Valley and Stanford is it's a lot of startups. When they go off these evaluations, they go off of, none of it's actually been like kicked off yet. Everything is speculative.
Right.
And so it was cool for them to kind of, like, this one 23andMe was taken off. So we'd have their CEOs or somebody from their team come present to them. So I was like, this is badass. This could be, okay, maybe this is what I want to do. Midterms time came, and I obviously didn't come for midterms because I'm not on the roll. So I came there the next day. I came the next day, and then it was a lady professor, and she came to me after that class. She's like, hey, I was going through the midterms. I didn't get one from you by any chance. And I was like, I'll be honest with you, ma'am. I'm not even a student here. I'm not a student here. She's like, well, do you work here? Like, obviously, regardless, you can't be here, but, like, what's your affiliation? I was like, I don't work here. I don't do anything here. I just live here and just moved here. And I kind of gave her, I had about 90 seconds to kind of give her my full story before she's like, get out of my class. So I actually ended up getting a job on campus after that day because she just said you can't come. But so I ended up working in the fitness facility. I was really a front desk associate to be an assistant to anybody there. It was just cool to be there. So around, time goes on, making some good friends out there, but at the same time, I know my time's ticking. Around the end of January of 2018, my godbrother here in Charleston, South Carolina, he passed away, and that was one of the first times I came back to Charleston since I really left. And that's when I saw my father. My father's progressed pretty quick. Dementia is one of those things, just as it progresses quick, and it's not linear. It's pretty exponential. It's like, all right, Chris, you've been gone for about 8 to 9 months. I know you said a year, but your time is to be. You may have to pivot a little bit. This is bigger than you. And so when I came back for that week, I made that decision. Actually, I was in California. I was like, I got about 2 months left. I got less than 2 months left before you need to be home. So when I came back, I gave my 2 weeks, but at the same time, one is like, I got a few weeks left. I need to make the most of it. So I went pretty hard on just figuring these things out. Well, when I was there, and this is the selfish part of myself, I ended up, the big part is I lived in a hacker house. That's what they call co-living. It's a fancy term for hostels back there.
Yeah.
Everybody's doing a startup.
So they weren't coders.
What's that?
Some of them were coders, I guess.
What's that?
Some of them are actually hackers.
I imagine they do some stuff.
Yeah.
They were smart, way smarter than I was. I guess the best way to put it. So you had to qualify to get into these hackers house because, to backtrack, I got kicked out of my cousin's apartment. I'm over here enjoying the pool. The guy it's an older guy named Randy. He walks around. He's like, "Oh, you new here? You live here?" I didn't realize he's in charge at all. Like, yeah, my cousin, he lives here, and I'm just kind of other words, bumming it, living the life right now. He's like, "Oh, so you're not a student?" Yada. We'll come to find out a week later, he gets a notice. Hey, somebody that's not on your lease plan or whatever is not a student. He needs to be out before you get in trouble or you get kicked out also. So that was a high pressure situation because I'm like, shit, I'm in California. I don't have a plan. I think I have a plan because I'm stubborn and prideful, but you got a car, so you're going to have to make a drive out to Charleston or you're going to have to kind of figure things out. So that's when I applied for this hacker house, and you had to apply for it. And it was probably a 2,200 square foot home, but you'd have anywhere from 12 roommates all the way to 19 to 20. And you talk about me being in the Citadel.
Yeah.
I was somewhat ready for it and used to it, but it was there was times you're like, man, this is different. But what was awesome, there was many times where I was the only American in this house. I was the only American in this house, and there was so many people from all over the world, and they either worked at, you got Facebook right down the way, you got Apple not too far. I had a gentleman that worked at Google. The other one was actually, he was head of the Robinhood like crypto division.
Cool.
So, and on Friday nights we would play board games, but you had to present, everybody had to present at one point what they were working on. And it was so cool because I learned so much. And here I'm on Friday night. I mean, come from Citadel, being from Charleston. Friday nights, you weren't playing board games. You ain't playing board games. So this is different, but I learned so much and loved that. But when I was in, to kind of now fast forward back, is I ended up going to go see a classmate in Hawaii. They're like, man, you're about to fly back. Hawaii's $200 ticket. Way better than when you're going to fly. You're ever going to visit Hawaii. Stayed up in Hawaii for 2 weeks in the hostel. Went to go see Aaron Bridges, and I was like, man, this is awesome. This is like my last little hurrah before I make it back to Charleston. And to go back to Charleston, I'm being born and raised here. There's definitely a sense of pride and ego. Like, you always think about James Allen's. I grew up on James Allen. James Allen's a lot of people, but it's a small place, and you got to stay aware of. There's a lot of small town gossip and a lot of small town, and Chris went to go to this. This is where ego comes into. Chris, he went to go conquer the world and go to California. He comes back. He failed, and this is where a lot of self-ego comes in. Of you're overthinking things, and the people that always pop up in your head. You're like, these people don't mean shit to me. Like, why am I even worried about what they're thinking?
Yeah.
I haven't talked to them in a while, but moved back, and I knew what my reasons were. It was really for myself, and also really for my dad. And on my way home, because my brother flew out, we were like, we're just gonna make the trip back to Charleston. I had my dad's car out there. We got it shipped out there, and so we had to make the drive back. And on the way back, I didn't know what the hell I wanted to do. I didn't know what I wanted to do. I knew I wanted to do something in health and fitness and nutrition, just because that's what I've been chasing for those past few years, but I didn't go to school for it. I'm reaching out to all these people here in Charleston. And that's one of those things you need some degree or certification for. In the business, certain things you can kind of just, I don't say wing it, but the door's a little more open. I was getting turned down a good bit, and my brother, honestly, he was just like, dude, you should go all in with the moving thing. Now the moving started, I was doing a bunch of side hustles while I was in school.
Yeah.
Landscaping was one, and then progressed into me passing out flyers in my neighborhood. I was trying to save it for a class ring. Hey, sophomore, about to go to my junior at Citadel. Trying to save up money for this expensive, class ring. Was put on everybody's mailbox, and got a lot of requests from people asking for move things around the house, and asking. Then I started leveraging Facebook in general. Facebook groups, and this was big before Facebook groups became a thing. Right. Facebook Marketplace. When I was at the Citadel, I started this page called Charleston Trade and Sell, and it was funny because now I look at I have that the page just kind of just went off the ledges. There's 20,000 people in it, but at the time I just remember sitting in my room like, I want to create something where I can kind of leverage a little bit of what I have, a group of people, because I was picking up furniture at the Citadel and then selling it on the weekends if I could find it, and I knew at the end of the month, especially during the summertime, right when school finished, that's where a lot of the people would put all the good furniture on the road and I'd resell it. And there's some times where I was like, man, I just picked up this couch for free and just sold it for $400. So I was like, all right. Yeah. So a lot of small things. Did the textbooks, buy and resell. All the cadets, they would leave their textbooks out or throw them in the trash. Made a couple thousand doing that, and it was just fun. And once I graduated, when I was at California, there was a few classmates Lee Davis, Scott Holt. Yeah. Those guys are
Speaking of which, Lee just wrapped up SF training.
Did he?
Right? Yeah.
Kick ass. Dude, that dude.
He's a Green Beret now.
That dude is crushing.
I saw him at Ethos.
That dude is.
He was always bad. He was always badass physically, but when I met him the other day, it's also seems like one of the most humble guys ever too. So just wrapped up training. Oh, really? That's sick.
I feel like every time as life goes on, I hear more and more something else he does, and I'm almost to the point where I'm always impressed but never surprised. It's crazy because he just continues to. He did this, and that's I love his mindset. All those guys that he surrounded himself with, and
it is super cool that we have a lot of those people in our lives, just in general. A lot of that is from the Citadel, but I feel like you and I are probably similar in the same way. We like to surround ourselves with people that are continuing to do cool things.
For sure.
And they keep pushing themselves up to other limits, and past their limits, which is why, talked to Ryan Cass this past week about his 102 miler. And they just you're kind of why? What was the reason for that? And that's, it's funny because that podcast is coming out here shortly, but it was he was like, dude, I knew that 125 wasn't going to be hard enough, so I went and did 150. I was like, Man, some would consider that psychotic, and maybe we all
You
are
gotta be a little bit.
just a little bit
You gotta
psychotic. I was like, that's so sick.
He's another one, never surprised, or always impressed, but never surprised.
Yeah.
Like he does something, I'm like, damn, all right, 100-mile trail run, and
Yeah.
do this. I'm like, dude, it's just you're 100% right. And there's people that you put around yourself. I think Citadel tends to have a little bit higher concentration rate of people like that, which is awesome.
Yeah.
And so you got to be a little delusional sometimes, and I think that's one thing that.
You mentioned optimism earlier, but it's delusional optimism is what as I feel like what we are.
You got to
what you are too, and as myself kind of being pretty entrepreneurial, it's like we're optimistically, delusionally optimistic about everything, and it's just that's how I like living my life. I like to think that good things are going to come out of every situation, regardless of how terrible they actually are.
And it's crazy how we got to this point where it's almost where we have to own it as saying it's delusional, because to us it's not delusional. Yeah. To us it makes sense. If you want something, you go after it. If you want something, you focus and you go all in. But I think balance is definitely something. But there's definitely times in your life where you truly want something, you have to fight everything for it. There's something you truly love, family or something. There's not like, hey, like I love my family, I'll fight for them when it's convenient, or I'll fight when I have balance. Like no, like if there's something you truly love or you truly want, you gotta go all in, man. 100%. There's some things like you just gotta freaking go all in, and so most people would say, yeah, you're a little delusional, but I think there's a point where you just own it, and you're like, man, that's what it takes if you want to get to where it is. And so when I was in California, that's actually when Scott and Lee called. I was like, hey, man, are you still doing the moving thing? Because during the school year, on the weekends, they'd say, hey, I have somebody wants to help move furniture. I would go all around the barracks. Does anybody want to make some money with me this weekend? And somehow we'd pull it off every time. But those were kind of the common people that would end up helping on the weekends. And I was like, I'm not really doing it right now. I'm actually in California, but I mean, if y'all want to do, let me put in the work and see if we can find some customers. And so we started doing it. 2 or 3 weeks later, we'd get like 1 or 2 jobs a month, and I would send it to them, Lee and Scott especially, and they would take lead with it, and we'd get it done. It was not a very formal setting, but they were such squared away solid guys. And it was funny because I'm over here like getting all the intel, getting the full customer service but I am literally just somebody it's almost like you advertise on Craigslist for something that's so unprofessional, but you're trying the best to put on, not a facade, but you're trying your best to be professional with the little bit you have. They give the guys all the detail and intel for the move. This is what we need to get done, and I would give it to them, show it to them. This is what we need. It's the start time, and they'd crush it. And so fast forward now to where I'm driving back. This is where I knew I had a little bit, because that helped me. The money from that helped me pay for my living situation in California, which was awesome. And so when I got back, as we got more, because we broke down the drive to a few days. The first few days you're so optimistic, like, I'm gonna find something in this. But then you start to realize, as you're getting closer to home, you're getting closer to reality. Yeah. You're like, okay. I get home and I was like, you know what? The first few days, also when I got to Charleston, I'm doing everything, going out to people that would be in that industry of health and nutrition that I was really trying to dive after. I was even like a gut health doctor that was starting to just get really picking up by the media here in Charleston, South Carolina as well. He was awesome, but he's leading. But it's kind of like, hey, like I appreciate reaching out, but not really something I'm looking for and eating right now. Right. Some young kid who doesn't know what's going on. So I just went all in with it. I just remember sitting there and in my mom's dining room, and it's like, you know what, this is what we're doing. And if you're gonna do so, I'm gonna get a logo. So within a few days, got a logo, LLC. And my brother helped me out a ton to get these things together. LLC. Went back to Scott, Lee, a few other guys that were at the Citadel. I was like, hey, because now when I get back, it's about March. Yeah. Graduation's coming up. I don't know if you guys have any plans, but I went to everybody that was helping out during the school year. This is what I'm going all in with this, guys. If you want to, would love to have you guys with me. I don't know if it's going to work, but one thing I can promise you is this: I'm going to give it everything I have. And so on my stance, like I'm going to put. If it takes a lot of money, whatever it takes, I'm gonna give it everything I have. Like this could be the project that I go broke with, but I'm happy to go all in with it. So within those 2 months, because we got started, we filed for LLC around the end of March, but at the beginning of April, we got rocking and rolling. So
this is 2019.
This is 2018.
2018.
So I graduated in May of 2017. So in California time. So when I got back around the end of March of 2018, this is whenever I just went all in. Went on Fiverr, went on a few places. Like I gotta get a logo. This is what I want. This is the feel. And when I know I want something, and I can see it, I won't quit until like it comes to fruition. Yep. Like I can just. And so somebody helped me make the logo, and once, because I described it so many times, I was like, that's not what I want. This is what I'm trying to do. I'm trying to speak to and elaborate to you. And once they got it right, I was like, this is what I want. So we went all in with it, and I started learning SEO. I started learning a lot more of social media, a lot more of the people. Charleston's a small place, and if you do things well, it can bleed pretty quick in terms of like a good bleeding. Like it can spread so quick.
Yeah. Or you can bleed out too.
You can bleed out. And that was one thing that I wanted to tell our guys also in the beginning is, hey, we do one great job, 2 people probably find out, and that's gonna help us out with marketing budget and all that. But we do one bad job, we do something very shitty, or a lot of these people we may make that quick dollar today, but we're gonna wonder why we have no work 2 weeks from now. And so that was one thing that when I came back home, especially, I knew that I wanted for us to do something that was, excuse my language, but never shit where you sleep. My family's here, I've been here, reputation, and once again, probably comes to a sense of ego and definitely being a prideful human being. But I wanted to do something that was, I could go to get groceries, I could go get lunch at Whole Foods or Earth Fare, and someone say, that's a great company. You moved my mother, you moved me. Like, I may not have moved you, or this guy next to you might have moved you, but your team did something, So we got rock and rolling, and 6.5 years later, here we are. So that's the long story of how PMC started.
I love it. So just to follow up real quick on a situation. So you actually helped me move at one point.
Yes.
And this was 5 years ago. And in that situation, there was like a black mark on one of the tables when we got to the next location. And I called you and I was like, hey man, just curious, do you know which one of your guys, like, did they see this before? What happened? And you basically said, you're like, I don't care. I'm going to take ownership for it. And like in that moment, like you took ownership for it like immediately. And I was like, that just to prove the kind of business that y'all are. It's like, hey, regardless of what happens, obviously you have insurance and other things to cover, to make sure that nothing ever goes wrong. But inevitably it's a contact sport, right? You're moving furniture.
That's a great way to put it, actually.
And so things are going to happen. We talk about this in construction all the time, right? Like it's a contact sport. Things happen all the time. Like, I'm sorry. Like if we break a window, we'll fix it. Like if we mess up the masonry, we're gonna fix it. But inevitably things break in life, and you have to be able to fix it. But I think for you as a business owner to be like, hey, I'm gonna cover you as like $250 or whatever you could. You're like, I'm just gonna take that out of what I charge you. And I was like, immediately, okay, that's the kind of company that Chris is building. Instead of like no, I'm good. I'm gonna argue with it to court. Like you realize in the moment. So I was like, okay, I know he's building. He's building something truly special. So just a quick little plug there too for the experience that we had.
That's something that as time goes on, because the first few years when things, I think pride definitely comes into an ego when something does happen. It wasn't always easy to handle like that. And so probably when you're talking about the timeline too, that was probably just whenever I realized because it's easy to have that conversation, do what's right, now it's easy. Those first few times, and when something would happen, ego was in the way. You're trying to figure out, you sure that was us? And like, we wouldn't fight it, but it was always a tough thing to try to figure out. And as time goes on, like you said, it's a contact sport. You got to realize like our goal is to have a very low incident rate, but if something did happen, how are you going to handle it, Chris? And how's your team going to handle it? And so that was probably, especially around that time where I was like, I really want to get better at this because I'm a very big emotion and logic guy. I like to observe both, but I like to make sure I don't react off the first thing that I feel. And so I'm actually, you're painting that, now I can like recollect a lot more around that timeline, and I appreciate you saying that because it's when you're in the heat of it, you want to almost like see if you could have a camera on you to reflect. How did you handle that situation? What could you have done differently? What could you have done better? So that's definitely the direction we've always wanted to go. So I appreciate that. It really means a lot.
Absolutely.
It really does.
Well, and now, so let's fast forward. We started in 2018. And now, what is it, 6 years, almost 6.5 years later? You are at how many trucks, how many guys, frankly, just you're all over town, right? I mean, I can't drive around town without seeing a PMC truck. So, so what is kind of that, to learn from where you were at 6 years ago to now, what has kind of that growth been like for you?
So that's a great question. So I guess kind of paint, like, let's do this last summer for us.
Yeah.
So during the summertime is our crazy time. That's
Yeah.
when most people are moving.
Yeah.
Around the country. That's just that time of year.
You don't have to get like numbers
Yeah,
necessarily,
yeah.
but I'm just more so like,
Yeah.
like what does the growth look
Yeah,
like?
no, great question. And so that's when we have most of our guys, which is awesome because it coincides with summer break.
Yeah.
So during the summertime, we typically have about 30 plus guys.
Cool.
Trucks on the road. So we have 3 of our actual like wrap PMC trucks, and we have a few vans for packing. But we use a lot of U-Haul still. And that's how when we first got started, we had no trucks, and I'm a very lean approach guy. That was one of the first books I read was, the lean startup is how do you just start something with being lean as possible. And that applies to a lot of things I've done before. But so we have 3 of those trucks. We have probably like 3 vans, a few vehicles for our guys to drive. But during the summer, we try to have about 7 to 10 trucks on the road a day. And so right now, that's what we currently have during the school year. We have a smaller team. Usually, could be anywhere from lowest 6 to 8 guys. And that's mostly the moving side. We also have packing side, so it's gonna be about 12 total. And during the summer, it can get up to about 40 people total. So that's usually the heat of those 3 to 4 months is the summertime. It's like football. You have your in season. It's just in the summer. it's crazy.
Yeah.
But that's where we currently are. And each year we've kind of built, add another truck into the fleet or add something into the fleet. So it's grown a lot.
Super cool.
It's grown a lot.
We didn't really talk about this before, but like vision wise, and you don't have to share too much of the vision, right? You don't have to give too much of the secret sauce. But what's kind of the vision for this, right? And maybe for yourself too. Like, what do you envision, or where do you envision yourself taking this thing, or just being?
That's an awesome question. This is probably the most clarity I've had in a while at PMC. The first few years, I'm trying to make it. Not for me personally, but for everybody that's involved with it. So to get to that picture, but also to backtrack when we got started, is I knew we were coming into an industry that, when you graduate college degree, you're not like, I want to be a mover,
right?
Or I want to be like, it's just one of those things where it was never a prized industry for some reason. So I wanted to do everything I could to make guys who come out of the Citadel want to be a part of moving in general. So to leverage PMC, the company name, and the brand, hopefully the reputation. And I knew pay was another thing, so I was like, that's when we first got started. I had to say, hey, I know this may be a lot more than if I was a businessman, I'm going to try to pay our guys a lot more because you're taking a risk.
Right.
So the vision now is where I want to get to is, if we fast forward years from now, is I want to be able to, when a customer has contact with PMC, I want them to get that red carpet experience. I want them to realize how important they are. Also, I want our guys to. I want when someone graduates our staffing situation is when a guy graduates PMC or the Citadel. See, I know I could take this job here at this white collar job. I could be a banker and be making all this, or I could go to PMC and make some really great money, but also the culture, the structure, the people they work with. Because as of right now, our culture and our guys work with, they love it. Yeah. When we take a survey, we take the guys like, man, work's tough, the day's freaking hard, we got to pivot and adapt, but the guys what bring me back every single summer. So really the guys making really great money that they earn. So I want to get to a point where we can provide enough value, and that's a lot more the internal, like what is our procedures for them, and then value for us as a customer getting amazing experience. Hopefully things don't really get damaged, and if they do, they're getting that white glove repair treatment type of solution. Yeah. The house looking protected, trucks on the road. Our next big point that's going to help progress into that vision is getting a warehouse. That's been, and one of our top guys. He's been, I value him so much just because he's been through the ups and the downs, but also is Ellison Rourke. He graduated as well as Citadel with us. Yeah. He's just somebody that, he's been by my side to understand the vision, and there's been definitely times where I'm like, hey, I know we want to get to here, but right now we have to figure out what's going on right here, and we have to get to there. Right. So the vision of PMC is to have that central location warehouse where we have, that magic number for me is 12 trucks. I want to have 12 trucks wrapped up, guys staying busy. We don't have trucks standing there. White glove service. Yeah. I do want to continue to get a lot more to the higher end market just because it's awesome when we have a 4 to 6 man crew there for the day. They're on Daniel Island, Kiowa, downtown, Mount Pleasant, and just, hey, this is the job for the day. We're doing packing, cleaning, organizing, and then moving them. So they're getting all the way from, if you could get out of this place right here and then go into your next place, and then by lunchtime, you're at home, you're at your new home and it feels like home, that's a goal. And so for us, that is what PMC looks like. And it's hard for me to stay on track like vividly right now because I have so many. It's like such a great question. I'm seeing so many different.
There's a lot of moving parts to that.
Yeah,
right?
There's a lot of moving parts, and we just had our Friday meeting as well, where to get a lot of the guys involved as well with decisions, because a lot of things that we do here now, not many of them were my ideas. Not honestly, it comes from our guys who come in. Hey, I want you to be involved. I want you. It may seem like you're only here for 3 months in between your military dates, or you're here in between your career. But when you are here, I want you to have a little bit of ownership in terms of just help us. How can we get better? I even asked our guys after the first week, if you were a customer tomorrow and you've seen what you've seen so far, what could you do? What could we do that you would be like, man, this is even better than what we're currently doing? So a lot of the cool things and good things that we're doing now, most of our guys who come here before. So I like creating that environment for our guys to have some ownership and also feel important. I think Viktor Frankl, he said in his book, Masters for Meetings, you got to give somebody a project they feel involved with to give them meaning. Right. And with a lot of our guys, when they're in their 20s, especially right when they're graduating, think about when you first graduated, you almost feel like you have to prove something, or you feel lost, you feel anxious. And a lot of our guys, we do deal with that because they're just getting out of school. They've been in school for 16 years, if you include kindergarten.
And they're on a high too.
They're on a high. Yep. So they've been told by, I just spent all this money to this degree. The school, Citadel, tells me I should be making X amount of money the day I graduate. And then also, I'm also trying to figure out life, if it's family situation or, relationships. You see a lot of a lot of things that are transition time. Your 20s, man. There's a lot of moving parts. So, our guys, you try to make sure that they are heard. And
society's telling you one thing too, right? Like you're seeing everything online, and you're being told you're supposed to be this kind of person, and you've been told for the past 4 years as you continue to grow into leadership positions that you are you're going to be leading the country and leading the nation, and you're going to be doing all these things, and you're like, wow, this
Screw
was
your 9 to 5.
really humbling after spending all this money to get this degree. Yeah. You not to cut you off there, but you really focused on using Citadel guys, which that makes a lot of sense from a quality control perspective,
right?
And also from a general values perspective. Mm-hmm. Are those kind of the main reasons, or is there at any time you see yourself moving outside of just using Citadel guys to grow and expand, or are you planning on keeping with the same model to continue to grow and expand?
That's a great question. So currently, right now, and since we got started, we only hire Citadel cadets and alumni. Yeah. That was kind of our one. Like you said, you kind of know for the most part who you're getting. It filters out a lot, and it doesn't mean that it's not binary. That doesn't mean if you get a Citadel guy, he's going to be your amazing, no problem guy. Yeah. And it doesn't mean if you didn't hire a Citadel guy, you can't get that. But for us, there was a little bit of you can relate. I think that's a lot of things with Citadel. There's some stuff that you go to relate. So I wanted them to relate. So right now we've hired over 250 guys. There's been probably about 10 or less that didn't go to Citadel, or they were veteran, or they had something to do with the military, or and then we had a guy who was actually a Clemson grad. He was a rock star with us. So we do a little bit of kind of make an exception here and there, but I try to stay true to it. I did have a big sit down recently to try to figure out how do we want to combat, because we have a very limited pool. We're only going to hire from the Citadel. What about when times get a little bit skim? For us, the times get a little bit skim are usually in the spring semester, because our fall guys, the ones that are here after school get started, their military dates are coming up. November, December, right. January, February. So I'm trying to find a good solution for us to, how do we patch that time of the year to where we can still fulfill all these jobs, because we turn on a lot of work. Some years, and there's also a lot of correlation to it because where the market was and housing market in the last 3 or 4 years. But if we're turning down over 30 jobs a month, there needs to be some solution there. It doesn't mean we want to tackle them all, because some of them may not be what we want. But we've sat down to figure out. I've actually been approaching the veterans program a lot at Citadel. Paige Tisdale, she's been an absolute rock star for us for the past few years. As you know, she's a legend on campus. The Career Center has been awesome. So we're opening to possibly looking to a lot more of the veterans. And also, quality for us is everything, quality over quantity. But I want to see if we can try to reach out to maybe the military recruiters here in Charleston, South Carolina area, and see if and try it out.
Yeah.
Because I think there is a lot of success there that could be a win-win for everybody, and still where customers like, man, this is a squared away, military-oriented company that they really crush it.
Right.
So that's our vision here in the next 12 months of what we're starting to lean more into. We brought in another gentleman who has a lot of great experience. He's about 36. His name is Justin. It's like, hey, it's about time we continue to build a team, and he's been the one that's been really helping us out also to figure out that direction. And so I think with the right team and the right structure and the right systems in place, I'm a lot more confident bringing in somebody that may not just be a Citadel guy, and either they're going to fall in place what we're looking for or they're not. So we are going to probably open up a little bit towards also military members.
Cool. Love it. I feel like that's, in order, well, once again, you know this, but in order to truly expand, it's like there are certain things that you have to start to kind of think, okay, well, can I let loose on this particular item a little bit more? Can I allow certain individuals that are not, that maybe like right in the realm of what I'm used to come join our team, but also you get to keep that quality control too.
For
so
sure.
You're like, man, I can maybe slack on this a little bit for now as we figure this out, but I also know I don't want to because I know I can build a quality team with these kinds of individuals.
100%.
It's like for us too, we use personality assessments for everything, and I think the biggest. I'm not sure if y'all have gotten into that at all.
We haven't done personality tests. I did the keeper's test recently.
Okay.
That was a big Netflix thing that they were talking about recently. But
what is the keeper's test?
Well, keeper's test is more like an owner's type of test, more of if you were to, knowing what you know today, if you were to look at your crew now, would you hire them again or not? And if you wouldn't, I think there's definitely a lot of morals and ethics that you got to kind of fight against and make your own decision, which for me, I don't like to just kick people to the curb.
Right.
But there's a lot more extreme of like, you cut them today and you move forward with that team, that would be quote unquote your dream team.
Yeah.
And I'm really just relaying it a lot more in just simple terms. But that was something I did recently about a month and a half ago, to kind of have a vision. I wanted to visualize what is that perfect team, because exactly what you're saying is, once again, pride, ego, and trying to be a perfectionist is, I would way rather have a crew of 5 guys and those jobs are going perfect.
Yeah.
Customers love us, and our guys are like, man, I love what I do, compared to the crew of triple the size, 15 guys, and
right.
2 out of those 3 jobs are going bad. Stuff like you're talking about is getting damaged. Guys are showing up late, not clean cut, clean shaved, shirts tucked in, stuff that may seem like, okay, you can get away with it, but like for us, like those are important things. You communicating, something does get, so we haven't done a personality test, but but that's a lot more what we're doing. And honestly, last night and this weekend, we redone our handbooks, our SOPs, and with the SOPs and the progressions that we created in the last month for the positions, there's a quiz at the end. So some of the guys I've been for other, like, what the heck is all this homework you're making us do now? But that's what we're really being intentional about right now. So
just, not that you need a suggestion here, but just
please.
suggesting. So when I got out of school, I moved to Boston. Then came back down to work for an AI startup that was literally analyzing personalities to better understand whether or not they were a good fit for an organization.
That's cool.
So we would analyze the top 3 to 5 performing individuals in a location, utilize their personality, like the personality type that they all encompass, and then we would compare all incoming applicants to those top performers. And a lot of it was like to increase retention, reduce turnover, that sort of thing within franchise locations.
Smart.
But a lot of other companies were using it for specifically hiring like their A team on like a sales team. Like this is what a member of like a really good sales team member looks like within our culture at this organization specifically. Cool. We could really identify that for them. So did a lot of that with that company, but then with this company now using PI assessments. PI predictive index, frankly, has been phenomenal.
Really?
I was not a big fan of it before because like this is total BS. I was like, I'm not like never.
What made you feel like it was BS? What part of it?
You're selecting words that describe you. What describes you? What do you think other people describe you as? And then you're like, there's like a third section to it. And I was like, this is total BS. I was like, I can pick any words.
Yeah.
But then at the end of the test, you get to your results. You're like, man, that's pretty spot on. Like, that's pretty spot on for me. Like it gives me a better understanding of like what makes me tick. And mine came out to be like persuader is what mine is.
Okay.
And I was like, that makes some sense.
Yeah.
I'm a pusher, persuader. Like I like to get things done. I love sales. I always have. But as it relates to like other people in the office, like are like project managers or project superintendents, they're more like management style individuals. They're more operators instead of like a persuader or like a salesperson.
Right.
And so when you get that kind of vibe and you figure out what do like our key players exude, what kind of personality traits do these guys have? what has really made them like a key player in our organization, and then you have every single incoming individual take it. You can be like, hey, I know you lack urgency based off this assessment. Tell me a time in which you maybe didn't lack urgency, so I can better understand if that's true or not, right? Just helps to make your interviewing questions go so much better
I love that.
at the end of the day.
Now, do y'all have like a software or like is it just a website you go to?
We use predictive index, so it's PI assessment. So predictive index is the company.
Oh, you're sending it. Oh, so that's the company.
Yep, and you literally we have them. Every single incoming employee now takes the assessment, and we use that in our interviewing to make sure they're a good salesperson, make sure they're a good project manager, make sure they're a good project superintendent, make sure they're good for this role. And you don't realize it until later on. And you're like, damn, I didn't realize it about you, but now I'm reading your project, your assessment. Right. It's super spot on. It's scary spot on.
It's cool though. It helps you understand your people.
Yeah.
I ran into that recently, and like me, I'm a motivator. Yeah. I believe so much in humans, and I want to go spread the word, speak. I want to at the same time, like if I know that you want better in your life, you're not happy where you are, like I want you to have that confidence. But I recently tried to, and I'm sometimes, unfortunately, society, I'm not always I'm not going to prepare weeks in advance, and I don't like to necessarily be so tied up, but so when I do present something, I'm so like robotic about it. Yeah. That's just my style. Yeah. So that in that I could lack a little bit of preparation for certain things. And
so you said you do like to prepare like weeks.
No.
You don't like to.
No. And there's definitely been times where it definitely hasn't always worked out, but for me, I don't know. I like being able to just perform on the spot in terms of just like step up to the plate.
I'm right there with you.
I mean, don't get me wrong. Like I like taking bat practice. Yeah. I like knowing where I need to work on. But at the end of the day, I just like when you gotta step into the batter's box, you gotta step into it. 100%. And I think there's once again, I like the practice, I like the drill, so I like to do those things, but I don't like to rehearse. And it's a lot of people's a downfall. From when they were to assess me, but whenever one of our guys, I wanted to really encourage him to do a lot more like public speaking with myself and all, because I wanted him to realize how much more in charge he is in ownership style. But I could tell that I was almost like forcing it on, and I realized that wasn't his. It's not his strength. That's just not his specialty. Right. But on job sites and on like how he solves things, amazing with solving things, and he's such a critical, and that's why we balance each other up so well. And that was a very big recent, aha moment of, hey, doesn't mean that they're just not capable of it, but that's just not. If you always take that personality or PI test,
not his strong suit.
That's just not his. That's not his forte. He may not want sprinkles on his ice cream. He may want a cherry instead. So like just realizing that, and that's what makes humans so awesome. So I love hearing that, because I definitely when we leave here, I already have a few notes that I want to incorporate.
It's one of those things too. You're like you're like, I don't need a personality assessment to understand somebody. And like at the end of the day, like if you're good at reading people, you really don't. But it is good to know a lot more about them past like the one maybe 30-minute interview you get with them in person, or the 2 30-minute interviews you get with them in person. You're like, I can better understand them, and I can make sure that I help this individual in putting them in the right spot to succeed. Right?
I love that.
It's really about helping them succeed. Whereas I always used to look at it as like, I don't want you to analyze me. Like, I don't want you to know anything more about me. But it's like, but at the end of the day, it's good to know yourself, and it's good to be analyzed so that people within the organization can then put you in a spot to succeed.
For sure.
To make you happy.
For sure. I love that. I love that you see that. I like that a lot.
I'm gonna go back on something real quick. You mentioned when you moved to California, I kind of did the same thing with Boston. When I graduated, I was there were a couple different kind of bigger corporate organizations that I could have gone and worked with, like Big Pharma was one of them, and I was like, I'm not going to do that. I was like, I'm going to go do something completely different. Like I'm not going to go down like the traditional path. And so I ended up moving to Boston, working for still corporation, but it was a Citadel grad. It was the president at the time. It was a phenomenal experience for about 10 months. Way too cold, so I ended up coming back to Charleston because of that. Really.
Now the environment was cold, or the culture?
It was just the climate. The climate was cold. I met so many cool people. It was such a cool experience. But my first rooming experience, I was like, I didn't know where I was going. I didn't know where I was going to be living. I was just winging it, truly winging it. And the first situation I moved into was me and 3 others. It was a 3-story house, but 4 of us lived on the first floor of this house, right? And I was like, well, I don't really know anybody, so let's just do this for the summer months. So for the summer months, I was rooming with these 3 individuals, 2 of which, one guy was literally from Africa, working at Google.
Damn, that's cool.
Super smart guy.
That's cool.
The other girl was working at Google, also interning at Google. Okay. And then the second girl, was working for a museum.
Cool.
She had like purple and blue hair, worked in a museum.
Okay.
And then I was like, just this white guy from South Carolina. It's like joining the mix. And it was such an eye-opening experience of like, I've been around diversity my entire life, and I've been around these things. I was like, but this is the most diverse mix of individuals to be living with on a daily basis and experiencing this with. And so thankfully after 3 months I moved into kind of another location. But it was, and I say thankfully because the girl with the blue hair also apparently just got out of a psych ward, and I didn't realize that till like month 3, and I was like, I need to be out of this place. I need to be out of this situation. But it was also just like, hey, I don't really know, what my thing. Like, I'm gonna go work for this company, but I don't really know where I want to be. I'm trying to figure this out. Like, I want to be working for a startup. I want to be doing my own thing, but let's just roll with the punches.
Yeah.
So I feel like a lot of people get out of school and they're like, oh, I gotta have it all figured out. It's like, dude, you have to be doing something. Like, you need to be doing something. If you're just sitting on your couch doing nothing, you're losing. But if you're doing something, you're at least learning more about yourself. So go get out there and learn about yourself. And then 8 years, how many years has it been since graduation? 7 for you?
17 to 7, yeah.
As we look back on it, we're like, damn. But 6, 7 years later, you're owning a business and obviously growing to this point. But it's just really cool to talk through people's stories and also realize and like put the ego aside and realize how humbling these experiences can be. And I same thing, but I tried things, done things, built things, all the above, and you're just like you don't realize how much your ego can get in the way for a lot of this too. Like if you just take a step back and realize how much is out there and how great people are if you just connect with them properly and put your ego aside and try not to beat everybody out on everything. It's amazing how things can happen for you once you finally get to that point of like realization. It's a progression and like maturity for guys especially like our kind of mentality. I'm like, man, I'm gonna beat this guy out and kick this guy's ass. Like you finally like I still want to win, but like you gotta put the ego aside and grow it.
You're speaking the gospel to me. Like that's for me. That's I'm very competitive. Yeah. But when you realize what you can do with a team, it's not even an addition problem anymore. It's multiplication. You and another guy, or your team and the right guys, and you put them in the right positions. Every time someone asks, even like or like my business cards, they never says like owner. It always says, and even when people ask, it's like, no, I'm one of the team leaders here at PMC, because I realized real quick in the beginning, you can't do anything really by yourself. Like you can set yourself up in terms of like getting ready to start, but if you actually want, especially in this industry in general or a team-based thing, you need a good team, and you need those people to feel empowered. That was something real quick. You realize you don't see really anything on the internet that says, Chris, the owner of this, or doing this. And there's times I'm speaking, and it's funny because my fiance, every time I got her business card, and she actually, we'll drink it back because it says team leader, nothing says owner. But I want our guys real quick. I want them to feel more like the owners than myself. Right. If anything, and that was a big thing because, like you said, we're competitive people. But I realized real quick in the beginning, if I wanted to take this further and stronger and better, the best way to do that is to empower your team. And if anything, I feel like I'm working for them.
Right.
And I try to do my best as possible job to let them feel that too. They have a problem, they have something that happens, even when something doesn't go wrong. I'm not a good like, I'm gonna come crashing down on you, boss. I don't ever want to play that power role. And it's funny because when I'm younger, I definitely was very, some people say arrogant, confident, however it is, and then there's a few years, it's like you become so humbled where you have almost where you don't have much confidence because you're just throwing yourself in these situations. And then to have that balance of just confidence, but also humility and being vulnerable, I think there's been a beautiful mixture to, I take pride in my leadership style. I take a lot of pride in it because I've really just put myself to learn through so many others, and so that's you're speaking the gospel to me, because for me that's talking about you gotta put your ego aside. You can do a lot just by yourself. Yeah. You can do online sales. You could create some drop shipping thing. I did that when I was at Citadel. You can create something, but if you want to build something, especially in a service industry, you gotta have a badass team that believes in you. They believe in what they're doing, and they got to know that you believe a lot in them. Like I'll tell our guy right now, like whenever I talk about Ellison and a few or a lot of our other guys, you're a way better mover than I am. Like you see these things way better than I do. But at the same time, I hope that, you know, they see like, damn, Chris, I don't know how he solves this right here on the back end, but he gets it done, and that's what really is team sport.
Absolutely. Well, I mean, I talk about putting ego aside, and like I of course have an ego as well, and it's like it's so difficult to reflect on yourself and be like, man, I could have been better in that situation. I could have done this better. I could have approached this differently. But once you kind of get to this point where you're like, it is truly about building relationships and teams around you. And everything I've done has been like tech and marketing and AI and all this stuff, and it's like it's all been cool.
Yeah.
But it's also been like the reason I like made this shift into the service-based space like 7-8 months ago is because I was like, I want to be around people. I want to be building like true relationships with individuals, and I was like, I feel like I'm sitting behind my computer. It's like there's nothing there for me. Like there's nothing behind me in a computer. Like you put me behind a computer, like I am not myself. It's just not me. And like obviously we utilize these tools, but we are utilizing these tools to build better connections with other human beings.
I agree.
Hopefully, right? Like that's the goal. That should be the goal. And so I've tried to like pivot to like, okay, I'm no longer building this to build like a tool. I'm building this to build a relationship with other individuals. Like that's my goal now, my focus. Hopefully in everything I do. You talked about gardening before.
Yeah.
Gardening. What is it that got you into gardening?
That's a great question. I know you asked me a few days ago when we were talking a little bit about it, but
I don't know if you saw my slightly green grass on the way in.
I saw the green grass. Yeah,
and then I poured fertilizer and I burned.
Okay. I'm gonna look at it when I look up more.
You analyzed my green grass on the way out. It's like green and there's patches of burn, so I over fertilized the shit out of it. And I was like, this is gonna grow so well.
Yeah, too much nitrogen for sure. I've only been doing this for about 2.5 years at that, and anything you could do, good or bad, kill or not, I've done it. I'm an experimental person, but I got into gardening. It actually started when I got into fish tanks. I got into fish tanks. One of my best friends, his family has done like landscape architect designs for so many years, and very meticulous. You know, everything that they do and talk about, like trying to create space within a confined space. You know, create pathways and destinations. And I started to realize that when you're young. When we were younger, I was like, that sounds like silly. You're just talking. Your dad maybe just have some like weird like ways about things. But then you start to realize that there is so much. It started to allow me to learn a lot more about just Zen space in general. So it started with aquascaping. So creating the fish tanks, that it's more than just the fish. Like don't get me wrong, I used to have my goldfish beta tanks when you were kids and all that, but creating plants and some type of aquascape to create a world inside of a small tank. And then that translated over to my yard. You know, we got a house a few years ago, and I've always loved yard work. My father was always big into just cutting the grass every week and just spending so much time out there. So that was probably my way also after he passed to kind of connect a little bit. Like, okay, my dad loved this, I love this too. But then I started learning. I've always had a large appreciation for the Japanese culture, large appreciation. And ignorantly, I didn't really know why I did. I just like how they do things, how they just are so they come into one to realize like Zen spaces and just very I feel like because once again something I practice over the years is I try to be more of a logic person than emotional, but I also don't block out my emotions. I just figure out how to make a decision off of my emotions that makes logical sense.
Are you big into like Ikigai?
Yeah, that's a great book as well. That's but like in the meaning of it too, and that was it's funny because that's around about 2 years ago. My buddy and I. He was like, man, you should check out this book, and some simple Ikigai book. Like, what's your purpose? You know, what's your reason? There's a lot of words, especially like 10 of them in the Japanese world that they like your why, your purpose, but I loved the gardening aspect because as I got a little bit older, I'm still young, might be 30, but you start to change a little bit, like what satisfies you, what calms you down, what brings you peace, what. And I know speaking earlier, I gave up drinking a little under 3 years ago, and wasn't better than, less than. It wasn't. I had really no problem at all. I'd only drink probably once every few months, anyways. But that was like my way of. I noticed I got a lot of fulfillment from just spending time in my garden and seeing these things. And so Japanese maples it's my obsession that my friends know. Anytime we meet a stranger, like, tell me how many Japanese maples you got. I was out with friends this past week for the alumni. Like, dude, Chris, tell me. For me, that's just something I love and I collect. I think Japanese maples, they symbolize so much of just elegance, but also time, and also just so if a lot of gardens, they have Japanese maples like a focal point. And you can also create something so large, but something you can create it as a bonsai. And so you can create something that's 50 years old, but into a smaller plant. You're kind of, some people may cause some controversy saying, you're manipulating trees, life size, what's meant to do. But I think for me, the Japanese culture, so actually whenever I got engaged, we went to West Palm Beach. There's a Japanese garden there. And that's where we got engaged. And so yeah, gardening the Japanese culture influenced me to learn a lot more about that. They're big into having sound, sight. So sound is like having wind chimes, having something that you can hear. Water, they love water, moving water. If I looked at a yard and you see nothing moving, so you look out here and you see the grass moving. If you see life, you hear life. There's just a lot to it. It also creates a lot of patience. You stare at a flower, you stare at this tree, and look at it, man, it hasn't grown at all today. And then you go out there, but like when you just kind of appreciate the picture and the progress, the journey, you come back, you're like, man, it's been 6 months and this tree's grown a lot. There's a saying also, my garden's always my garden's becoming. And what that is like, you can always have work on it. You can always do something with it. I think that's with life. You're like, I want to be there. Like, why haven't I conquered life yet, or whatever that is? But it's like, no, like my garden's always becoming, and it doesn't mean it's perfect, doesn't mean it's bad, and it doesn't mean. But at the same time, you have to appreciate it. If you don't appreciate where it is now, you're not going to appreciate it to when it gets to that picture perfect way. And that took me a lot of realization also. I still kill plants, and I try not to, and I still have a soft heart about it. I still there's times where I'm looking at we had a very dry past few weeks in Charleston, excluding this past week. Things where this was a bit of a big trial time for me, because probably half of those maples I acquired have been in last year. One of them, this guy was he was running a farm for a while, Japanese maple farm. His wife posted on Marketplace that he had cancer, he's passing away, and she's not able to take care of him. So a lot of them were really suffering because they come from a lot of them in the upstate. So they're coming to Charleston, and so between the sunlight that we're in zone 9B, and then also how dry it got there, it's not looking so great. So go back to the drawing board, study how do we manipulate these things and stuff. So that's been my recent hobby with gardening.
I love it. I'm similar in the sense of like I've always tried to do something relating to being outside and being in like my yard or planting something and trying to keep it alive. But like mine was like a bamboo tree in Boston that I unfortunately killed because I opened up the window and it was like 14 degrees outside and it just froze the shit out of it. And I was like, okay, so maybe not bamboo trees. And I was like, maybe I should get a dog. I'm like, if it's anything like the bamboo tree, it's not going to live very long. Maybe we should wait a little bit longer. No, but to your point, I think the calm that comes from it, and the peace that comes from being in nature, that's been one of my main reasons for gravitating towards like I enjoy being outside, I enjoy being in my yard, I enjoy trying to do these things. Well, I might not be the best at it, at least I get to like learn from it and be at peace in that moment and reduce all anxiety, which is gets back to like grounding, just being outside in general.
For sure.
But that's super cool.
I appreciate
super cool.
I appreciate it.
Well, keep me up to speed with your Japanese maples.
I will.
I need to stop by at some point and check them
Come
out.
on by.
That's super cool.
It's always becoming, and it's I tell people too, I don't have this amazing to them. I don't want to paint this picture that it's this beautiful botanical garden, but it's to me it's how I see it. It's like it's my beautiful escape because we have bamboo that lines up the back, so when the wind's blowing, we got it lit up. But it's you need to come. It's my zen space.
I love it.
It's my zen
you
space.
also have like a sauna and like an ice bath and everything. Are you in that space at all?
I have actually a little. I did get into an ice bath. There was like I kind of made a makeshift route. I bought a 100-gallon Arctic plunge, it's called a Grizzly, Grizzly cooler. 100-gallon, and I was like, man, it's a big old cooler, and you can fit 2 people in it. And then there's the gentleman that I work out with a lot. His name's David Drake, awesome guy. If you ever get a chance to check him out, he's in that community as well, and very, very mindful about things. And so he actually had this similar cooler, and then he put a chiller into it. I'll tell you right now, one thing I want to get better as I grow more is be a lot more hands-on, like fabricating things. He's like, man, I got this chiller, like let me just hook it up for you so you don't have to keep putting ice into it. So he recently actually fabricated to where now it has a chiller. I don't need to dump 12 bags of ice into it every day, every time I get into it, but I need to hook that up. But yes, I have one of those.
Cool. I want
to create more of an outdoor space where I can set it up, because as of right now, I'll be in my garage.
Right.
But yeah, I would like to utilize that a little bit more because I definitely gotten away a little bit from it.
Cool. Yeah, I'm like a big sauna steam room guy,
Ooh.
but the ice bath I'd like. It's just not convenient. There's one at
Right.
Ethos, but I don't go back there frequently.
Right.
And I got a friend who has one right now. He turned like an old freezer into
Ooh.
into an ice bath sort of
Okay.
situation as well. But it's not at the house, right?
Right.
And so I've not conveniently set it up in that regard. I was like, but if I ever do, hopefully, I'd like to think that I'd use it every single day.
Yeah.
But as of right now, it's just like sauna and a steam room every single day. It's
So many benefits. To
not
sauna.
so much the ice bath.
I love the sauna.
But I do know the ice bath from like an anxiety relief perspective, just complete relief from anxiety. It's like you don't even think about anything. You get out of the bath and you're so cold that like nothing really.
So you don't have any capacity to think about anything else.
Exactly. You're in such shock. But no, I've truly enjoyed doing that from time to time. I hate to cut this short.
Yeah.
But I do want to wrap up, and we definitely need to do this at some point.
You steer
again in the future for sure.
Steer the ship.
But to leave people,
right.
Obviously we have PMC and everything else we've discussed up to this point. What's kind of your biggest takeaway from the building PMC and growing over the past 6 years, growing your Japanese maple garden and buying a house and getting engaged and all this other jazz, right? What is kind of your bit of advice, and maybe not just to like guys that are getting out of college that are looking for a job, but just to people in general that are trying to figure it out, that have that same mentality as you, right? We're very entrepreneurial, trying to figure it out, taking these risks, doing all these things. What would you say is kind of your biggest bit of advice or book to read, or just like a go-to thing to help people that are in the thick of it, not to rep like a KSI song? That song's gotten so annoying.
No, that's a great question, man. I appreciate you allowing me to share my viewpoint and insights of things, and honestly, that's because I'm about to turn 30 in about a month or so, and if I was to really wrap up my 20s, what I've learned, and also kind of how my mind shift has changed, and I can easily go like this, so if you ever got to get me back on track.
Oh, good.
For me, it's just allowing people to realize, like, I think gratitude. I think that's been something for myself. Of I'm a big believer, of course, you said earlier, like create momentum, and I'm trying to really help our guys realize this too, because they're in that young 20s age, and I was right there with them, even 18, 19, 20, but you got to enjoy the process and the journey. That's been something, if I'm to look back at kind of these last 10, even 12 years, and even the last couple of years, you gotta be grateful, even when shit's going bad, even when you feel like things are just there's no other option. If you lose that sense of gratitude, that's when your boat's gonna start water's gonna start getting in. It isn't for me. I love having goals, and I like having if it's financial, whatever that term, that success is for you. But one thing that I can't ever get away from is gratitude, and I don't know if that's from. I feel very blessed and fortunate. Even whenever growing up, I didn't grow up in some huge house, but I didn't have to worry if I was gonna have dinner the next day or not. So like seeing the small things, that really helps me out a ton to realize you got to keep that. If you lose that sense, because they always say it's hard to be depressed and grateful at the same time, and obviously there's degrees of it, but that has helped me out a ton, because I was trying so hard to fight my journey, trying to fight the outside world, trying to fight. Momentum's a huge thing as well, though. I think people can see situations, and I'm a go-getter, but I'm also very like one love, like peace and empathy. And for me, it's because humans. I believe in human motivation, but I also have a soft heart for suffrage. I'm telling you right now, if you want to get me fired up, it's seeing someone suffer, and also seeing old people. Old people will get me fired up, man. I don't know what it is, but I don't know if it's because a sense of it's regret, if it's a sense of their timeline, and I got to learn to cope with that. But just keeping love, man. I think you can be the most successful financially if that's what it is to you, or not have much at all, but you can still be a shitty person. I don't care what you stand for, what you vote for, to me that stuff, like if you're just a shitty person, to me, none of that stuff matters. I don't care what you've built, what you haven't built. So just realizing that like the journey's it's gonna unfold, and when you look back, I can always look back now, like those dots, like man, that made sense. Because me getting But if I was to fight that, I wouldn't be where I am today.
Yeah.
You know, getting in trouble a little bit in high school, always trying to testing the waters there, led me to making a different decision that now I look back on was one of the best things I've done. Then getting in trouble at Clemson, when I was very mad at myself, mad at the world, forced me to go to Citadel, going to Citadel. Then it allowed me to have the company now that influence that decision of doing so. So like everything works out. So just kind of trusting that. But I'm a big believer is like you have control of a lot of things. Doesn't mean your situation's ideal. Nobody has the same exact cards that they're dealt. But when you start to lose confidence in yourself and your control, to me that's very important. And so just doing everything you can. I think confidence comes from those small little promises you make to yourself. You say you're gonna go to the gym tomorrow, go to the gym. If you say you're gonna make your bed, you say that you're gonna go and do something. I think those small little micro promises that you make, you may not even see those as promises to yourself, but when you don't do them, you're almost slowly growing further from yourself of distrust in yourself and your abilities. And I think over time you realize you're starting to lack confidence. You're starting to lack because you don't realize how powerful you are because you've let yourself down so many times.
Right.
Hey, I said I wasn't going to drink tomorrow night. Well, next thing you know, Sunday rolls around. Oh shit, my whole Sunday just because I let myself down. There's small little things that I think if you can do that, that's a big thing of life, and those are huge for me. So that's where we're at. And just keep going, man. Just keep going, even when shit seems bad and you feel like there's no end to it. They always say when you're up, you never feel like you can be down. When you're down, you never feel like you can be up. So just life is a beautiful way of working out, and humans are badass, man. Humans are badass, and I'm grateful to have you here and have friends like yourself and surround myself with people who are doing a lot of badass things. So
hell yeah.
I appreciate you having me here today.
Absolutely, man. So glad to have you here. And I'd say as a follow, I was also just checking to make sure it
Yeah.
didn't die. I heard a noise and I was like, did the thing just die? That was like that was the worst time for it to die. That was great. I was like, what is going on?
Yeah.
But I've asked this question a couple times before, and I feel like you're a good person to ask it to. But when you define success, right? When you think about success to you, right? As we're like, traversing reality and like this universe and this world and this experience, right? Like we're all experiencing life, right? What do you truly define as success? And I know that's like a deep question. I did not send you that over before. We've never talked about that one really, but when you think about success, what does success mean to you?
And you even asked me, like, just put on my radar. I made conscious decisions to not even think about it until I was with you. That's a great question because I think I can answer right now what I think what I define as success. And I'll tell you right now, probably 5 years ago, it probably was a little bit different. And I can tell you probably, maybe a few years if I have kids or whatever that is, could change a little bit because I think your situations kind of influence, your perspective on certain things. But as of right now, success for me are things that I value that I want to make sure are aligned. If let's say my life was to end tomorrow, like what would success to me is how did you treat people? And I think if you were not in the room tomorrow, what would those people say about you? And for me, they could talk about things you've done, things you've conquered, the money you've made. A big factor to me though is how did you treat those people? How did you treat those people make them feel? And so making sure other people are very valued and they know that, and they can say that at your funeral. And it can be a little bit dark, but it's at the same time reality. And how many people did you go out of your way? Because how many people did you help out? How many people did you? Because it's so easy nowadays, especially to walk by somebody who may have less than, or maybe they have more than, but you just don't feel like you have the time to talk to them and help them out. I think at the same time there is a financial responsibility to. I think currency is a byproduct of. It's a pretty strong byproduct of what you're doing and what you're accomplishing. And so I'd say if at the same time if I'm financially struggling and I'm financially not in a position to provide for like my family, if it's kids, if it's a significant other, whatever, and myself, I'd be letting them down a little bit. So I think success has to tie a little bit up with that of however you allocated that funds, and hopefully it's an honest way and it's a pure way that people can say like that guy created so much value that I wanted to pay him for his time and his resources. So I definitely put myself in a position to be able to provide for those people to where if we have to make a decision to where my kid may got really sick or something happened, or the house, burnt down, and of course insurance and all that would be great to have assistance with that. But like to make those decisions without us suffering, I think it's good to have hardship, but I think if there's suffers that we can avoid by all the things that you have accomplished, I think that's a great thing to take into consideration. And just accomplishing those things that you said you're going to do.
Yeah.
I don't know. Like I think David Gaughan's painted it really great of, if I was to make it to your afterlife and you're to sit down there with your God or whatever you believe in and say, hey, this is what I had planned for you and this is who you were. If who I was, what I truly wanted to now accomplish is great. But if I was to look back and say, man, you could have done this or you could have given your all. And this is a big driving factor, I think, because I had so many friends die at a young age. I'm 29. I can already count on more than two hands who's passed away that I grew up with, or friends, and even my dad. Just going after whatever the heck it is, man. Going after whatever the heck it is. And so because you could still go work for this big company, make all this money, and if you're always like, man, I wish I tried that, I don't feel like that's success. And even if you would have made less than, or even if you would have failed, like what if I failed trying? Like for me, success is, did you go after whatever the frick it was that you wanted to? Of course, it's going to be, I think as you get older, it's a little more volatile, or a little bit more like you have a little more responsibilities, but just going everywhere that is, whatever that pipe dream is that people always say, what's your pipe dream? And I was like, turn that into reality, take it to a chance. And of course, there's a little bit of delusion there, a little bit of fantasy, but how can you mitigate that delusion to now becoming your reality? And I know some people can, a lot of people are in different situations. They can look back and watch our interview and say, hey, like, must be nice to be in that position, or it's like, no, I'm not saying that at all, my position or anybody's position. Just what is that thing that you really want to do? Because I don't want you to be 90 years old sitting in your deathbed and be like, God, I wish I tried that.
Yeah.
So to me, that's success. That really is. And I can go on days about these type of topics, and I appreciate you asking. I really do.
Yeah, this is the one for me that's been like top of mind for a while now. It's like, how do I truly define success for myself, right? Mm-hmm. Which is probably why I'm asking it as well. It's a projection of sorts. It's like, how do you define success? I want to know how you define success, because I think I kind of define it the same way, but at the same time, there's always a nuanced approach or way of thinking about the definition of success.
Yeah.
That
what
makes
do you define? What's your definition of success?
I mean, as I continue to ask it too, right? I think it's like evolving to a certain degree, right? I think a lot of it for me is the impact that I've had on others, and if I can go and help a bunch of different people in life and truly die and people truly think that I had a good impact or a positive impact on them, I think that's a huge part of success. Mm-hmm. You mentioned the financial aspect, but I think financially you have to be in a good financial spot in order to truly find success in a lot of ways, because it allows you the freedom to go find success, right? And become more successful. So I think there's a financial aspect of it, but I think the biggest thing for me with success is picking your vision and going after your vision full force, and hopefully once again accomplishing that vision. Mm-hmm. But you have to first and foremost define that vision, which is a lot of what I've thought about as of late, like defining that vision. And I can manifest things like I want to make $1,000 doing this or this. Like I can manifest that pretty quickly, but like manifesting the ultimate goals is what is is kind of difficult. If you have to be able to really paint that and envision it before you can then have that success. So I think a lot of it starts with I define success as being able to accomplish certain goals, but in order to accomplish those goals, I have to first and foremost be truly envision it.
I love it.
And figure out what it is I want to succeed at. Like I want to go graduate school, did it, awesome. Right. I want to do these things, it's awesome. And also, do you have big enough goals for yourself, right? Like if you know you're capable, are you going after big enough goals? Right. And then you're like, damn, I'm gonna have to rewire. Like I am, but I'm not really. I'm not really thinking about or feeling myself and feeling what it's going to feel like when I do reach my goals. Yeah. I'm not really thinking about that. I'm just saying it would be nice to have $10 million. It would be, but what does that really mean for me? For sure. Right? Because it's so much more than the financial.
And once you do get that $10 million, what's from there?
They're right. They're is it $1 billion?
What changes?
It's like $1 trillion. And you're like, okay, that's just what does that really mean for you? That's great. But what have you really accomplished? You've accomplished making $1 trillion. Right. Okay. But what that doesn't mean anything. Yeah. What did you do with $1 trillion? Yeah. What kind of impact did you have? So then you sort of rewire your whole success thought process of I want to make more money, yes. But I want to figure out the impact it's gonna have on the people, and also, truly mean that I've accomplished something with substance in his life.
That's awesome, because where I'm at right now is, I'm about to turn 30, and I never made a big emphasis on 30 of like, oh, I'm getting old at all. It's just more, think about those promises that you made or those goals you made, and I have some personal like things that I made challenges for myself of goals. A few of them were whenever I sat down when I was 16, 17, and this is more just, once again, personal goals that I keep pretty confidential, but I wanted to hit these goals before I hit 30 years old, and that's why this past year has been hey, you're so close, but it's like you're not there yet. And I wanted to really just work my ass off, and a few different of those things that I wrote down. And you gotta think that's 14 years ago. Think about how hard sometimes where we give up on a year, a New Year's resolution goal. Yeah. Think about how hard even sometimes we have a goal for the week we don't achieve. Yeah. It doesn't mean that you're gonna conquer all those goals, but I think it is important to think about when's the last time you've conquered more than 2 goals that were more than a year long. This 5-year segment. It doesn't mean you can't pivot at all, or you can't adapt, but think about when's the last time you made a decade goal, and you stuck to it. Maybe if you are about 30, and that's what I'm trying to reconfigure right now is, okay, Chris, you just hit the buzzer beater, you hit these goals, what's your next decade goal, or what's your next, what is it? And I think what's awesome to hear about you say that ultimate vision, and I love having a conversation like this, because it helps me go back to is, you gotta put the work in, what does that vision really truly look like? Yeah. Now you're about to get married also. What is that true vision that you're trying to get to? Because now that's a decade goal, which is great. But what about where am I trying to get to when I'm 60 or 70? I need to start thinking bigger, and because that's going to maybe give me a little more clarity of where I'm trying to go. And I think you talk about Ryan Cass, amazing at just accountability, vision boards, and that's something that I could definitely. And I say it every time we get taught. Man, I need to start doing that. I really can implement. Getting better at that, because it can be scary sometimes.
Well, see, I'm terrible at it, which is why I'm when somebody's out, I'm like, I've not really done. I've thought through it, but I'm not really writing it all down. I know where I want to be, but I'm not putting together a vision. I'm not a vision board kind of guy. I never have been. I'm sorry, but it makes more sense now. Yeah. And you're like, okay, I'm going through this thought process of trying to figure out what's next and what I really want. Probably a good idea to create a vision board.
For sure.
But the stubborn side of me is no, hell no. I've done this.
One small thing that I really want to, if there's something I can encourage or just leave this message I want to add in there, because it was something that helped me out a ton. It's helped me out over the years. Is when I was in school and also going through the best times and the worst times, I would always make it a point. And I don't know, maybe I was just going through something so much and I didn't identify it, and I would make it even on my agenda. Call 2 random people on your phone, and I was just especially in Nauvoo, you're so lonely. You're going through so much things where
I cried so much.
You think about all those emotions they're going through, and I'm over here, and there's probably too much pride and ego that I wasn't in tune with myself of why I was doing it. But I would randomly scroll my phone, and if I landed on somebody's name, and if it wasn't completely the most, even the ones that were kind of challenging and hard, I would call them, and it would end up, and it was like a game I started playing. That's something that as the years have went by, you don't go with the intentions because you're trying to get something out of it. But if I was to talk to my younger self again, or I was talking to somebody who's just going into high school or college, or out even after college, we get, as life goes on, we become so distant these people. And you don't realize how many people are going through the same thing you are, or maybe people that are also doing those things that you want to be doing, that are looking to help people out. And that's why I believe so much in humans of what's helped me get to where I am, and also has helped me with a lot of mistakes to avoid, because I make a ton of mistakes. I make more mistakes than probably, I want to say, a lot of people, but what allows me to really is pick up the phone, call those people. Even those people, mentors have helped me out tremendously. Before I walked in the door, I called one of the mentors that I got assigned to at Citadel when I was in my junior year. I mean, this is one of the guys that's going to be at my wedding, man. Just because I decided to stay in touch with him. Pick up the phone, call those people. People that even they're going to be like, why the hell is this person calling? Are you okay? They may not even answer. More people didn't answer and texted, hey, is this, who is this? Yeah. Hey, this is Chris. I just thought about you. I know I could easily just, went on with it or texted you, but I wanted to see how are you doing. That is something so small that turned out to be such an amazing blessing, because as we get older, man, I don't have a big friend group, or I don't have many people to call to. But also there's people that are doing things on such a larger scale than I am. It's helped me progress so much quicker, because it doesn't even matter the age. I have a friend that's 2 years younger than myself who man, he makes me look like a little minnow compared to him on a financial scale, but also a success scale. So that's what, what you define as success. He's crushes it. So like putting yourself in the room of people that are doing things way bigger than yourself.
Yeah.
But also never forgetting those people that are doing things maybe in society's terms not as big as you. So picking up that phone, man, call that random person. I don't care if it's a roulette game. Close your eyes, call them, and you got to make sure everybody agrees with it. But at the time, I was single at the time.
Just avoid the ex-girlfriend.
I was about to say, there was even when I was single at the time, there was a time where I was calling ex-girlfriend. I was like, and I'm a very, like, you can't turn back. If you say, I'm calling this ex-girlfriend, and it's like so crazy. I was like, hey, so-and-so, I'm okay. I just wanted to call you. I thought about you. And there's been times where it looked weird as crap, and there's been somebody even with the phone that you may have, the last time I ever spoke to them was in high school, we probably butted heads. Yeah. But it's like forcing yourself, because I feel like a lot of us humans are here on the world to connect, but we become so selfish for our ways because we're in that fight or flight state, like, I gotta make it, I gotta figure out how I'm gonna feed my family, I gotta figure out how I'm gonna have success, that I don't have time to talk to you, or I don't have time to, and I think it is smart to where you spend your time with, but there's people that you feel like may not be on your level, reach out to them also. Just say, hey, thought about you, want to make sure you're okay. Awesome, love you, bye-bye. So that's something I would encourage people to do. So I appreciate it, man.
Love it.
I really do.
I love it. Well, I really appreciate you taking the time out of your day to come and join me and be a part of the episode. This is number 25, actually. I'm so proud. So a part of this journey, this is it's kind of just crazy at this point, but really appreciate the support. Really appreciate you hopping on. Appreciate the conversation. Appreciate the friendship and all the above. And looking forward to keeping these conversations going. And if there's ever anything that I can do to support you, your business, life in general, here to do it. Appreciate it. Here to experience this thing called life.
We're gonna fight through it together.
Hell yeah!
Appreciate you, big dog.
Great seeing you, brother. Thanks for joining.
Yeah, thank you, man.